Right, the stress, and then we fade away. So finally, we arrive at the third of these elegies. Bradstreet writes for her grandchildren. This one for her dear grandchild, Simon Bradstreet, who has Bradstreet's own husband's name, who died on 16th of November, 1669, being but a month and 1 day old. I don't think the others say being but 3 years. No, being but a month. So even there in the title, she lets us know that her heart is rising up. And Bradstreet writes in the letter she leaves to her children that when she came to the New World and encountered its hardships and its manners, her heart rose up. The Bradstreet biographer, Charlotte Gordon, suggests that when she says her heart rose up, she doesn't just mean she felt unhappy or emotional, but that she wanted to retch. It's that physical, her sense of, in this poem, I think of the unfairness of it, the difficulty of it. If we couldn't quite decide how much resolution, how much acceptance Bradstreet is able to come to in the first elegy. In this one, there are few readers who don't notice that this is a writer shaking her fist a bit like Job at God.
Bradstreet has taken up the agency again. Regardless of whether or not she's really come to terms with it, she has decided to.
There's a way in which I think this poem recapitulates, even in its, as it's extremely distraught and bitter, it tries to recapitulate the most successful elements of the other poems, the preceding poems. You get the imagery, the natural imagery from the first one, 3 flowers, 2 scarcely blown, the last in the bud cropped by the Almighty's hand. So we get back from the first poem to Elizabeth Bradstreet, the final hand, his hand alone that guides nature and fate, and all this natural imagery we got in that second stanza is sort of summarized in this line. Then of
The
course,
3 flowers, 2 scarcely blown, the last in the bud.
right.
Okay?
Then of course you have the wrenching element. I don't think there's a more wrenching line. Cropped by the Almighty's hand, hard pause, yet is he good? There's a hard line to read with a straight face. And then the middle part of the poem seems to turn back to the mode of the second poem.
Yes.
The sort of questing mode, but there's a bitter turn to it. Now the throbbing heart, it's hard to read humble heart as at the very least, I think it's ambiguous.
Well, we might believe humble heart, but not once the mouths are in the dust.
Exactly. And so abasing the heart and the mouth in the dust is an awkward image which may betray emotion rather than be a conscious effort of her trying to castigate God, but I think it betrays something abased, something in the dust. And then again, that awkward couplet, let's say he's merciful as well as just, not 2 words that we normally put together.
And the grammar there too, Seth, right? Let's say.
Right.
This is conventional in a way. This is in part liturgical language, and let us say. But there's also, amen, right? But there's also a little element here of if you are saying, let us say, you're not quite saying it.
You're entertaining the possibility.
To me, it betrayed skepticism and doubt. Let's say.
Yeah, and you read it. You read it as though it were a hypothetical.
Well,
Let's say he's merciful as well as just, or let's grant him.
Right.
Let's stipulate whether or not we believe it, that he's merciful.
Yeah. She just seems very skeptical, and I think the form really enforces that. Like the couplet you pointed out. 3 flowers, 2 scarcely blown, the last in the bud, cropped by the Almighty's hand, yet is he good. The rhythm there is off. It has the wrong meter.
I totally agree with you that there's metrical monkey business here. When we get to cropped, a meter that was really working more or less iambically goes trochaic,
Right.
cropped by the Almighty. I've never heard a trochee that was so violent or so maximized the usefulness of the trochee, right? Cropped by the Almighty's hand, yet is he good. And then with that automaton-like set of spondees, evenly stressed, yet is he good, right? It's not even human, it doesn't even sound human.
Regardless of the rhythm of the third line, there are just so many commas in this first set of lines. There's so many little pieces of language that don't quite fit together, and so many sort of awkward pauses. There's a kind of faltering rhythm throughout. No sooner came, but gone, and fallen asleep. Acquaintance short. Yeah, there's that.
But gone and fallen asleep, and that seems out of order to me, right? They should fall
Yeah,
asleep before they go.
The euphemism is coming after the hard truth.
And it doesn't seem like the
Right.
comma
Ooh,
should
that
be
was-
necessary, but she inserts it anyway.
Right.
Yep. Yeah. And this is the stumbling and staggering that Leah pointed to earlier. That's 3 flowers, 2 scarcely blown, the last, the bud. As John was pointing out the missing consonants, it's almost, you can see the petals. The line is losing some of its, some of its stuff. Cropped by the Almighty's hand, yet is he good.